What's up guys, my name's Stu, and today we're going to be talking about Tour the Galaxy. For a long time in Star Trek Online, Tour the Galaxy has been a really nice way for grinding energy credits. The trick with it is just figuring out how to visit as many destinations as you can within the 15-minute time limit. Now, a few months ago, Tour the Galaxy was updated, adding, I think it's 14 new destinations for the mission. These new locations were added to the northern part of the Alpha Quadrant as well as the Gamma and Delta Quadrants, so there's a lot more area to cover in the same amount of time because they did not extend that timer. Not that they really needed to, because Tour the Galaxy was already really easy to complete within that time period, so, I mean, it still works. So in this video, I'm going to be covering two different builds to help optimize your sector space speed as much as possible, as well as a new route to cover the new system locations. Of the two builds I'm going to be showing you in this video, this one is going to be the more optimal one for speed. You can actually ignore most of this gear because only a handful of it is actually going to be beneficial for the Tour of the Galaxy run. The first is the Adapted Mako Combat Impulse Engines, or for KDF players it'll be called the Honor Guard Combat Impulse Engines. This engine comes from the Omega Task Force reputation, and it is the fastest in the game for your sector space speed. There are others that come close, like the regular Mako engine or the Assimilated Impulse engine, but when you upgrade this engine to Epic, it gets 3 sector space speed mods, which that's what puts this to the top of the ranking. The next piece is the Gamma Synergetic Overcharged Warp Core from the Gamma reputation. This is here because it buffs your Quantum Slipstream, giving it a plus 60% to Slipstream speed and plus 100% to Slipstream turn rate. These buffs aren't given or changed by any mods on the Warp Core. At Ultra Rare this thing gets Amp, and at Epic it gets Weapons to Shields, so there's no need to upgrade this thing for the sake of Tour of the Galaxy if you don't want to. The same is true with this next piece, the Polaric Modulator Console. This is here because it gives another 100% turn rate buff to your Slipstream drive. That Slipstream turn rate buff will not change if you upgrade this, and those flight speed and turn rate buffs only apply in normal sublight space. So yeah, no need to upgrade this one either if you don't want to. And the last two pieces of gear we're going to talk about are from the Experimental Systems set. That's the console set from the old Tier 5 Vesta class ships, which come from any of the old Tier 5 versions of the Vesta or the Legendary Vesta. It doesn't matter which two consoles of the set you're using, we're just using it for the 2-piece bonus. And that's because this will upgrade a normal Quantum Slipstream drive to a Chronoton Integrated Quantum Slipstream, which lasts twice as long, is much faster, and provides a much better turn rate. In fact, this is the fastest version of Quantum Slipstream drive available in Star Trek Online. Now, it used to be you can only use this console set on versions of the Vesta, but since the release of the Legendary Vesta, they've actually unbound this console set so you can use it on any starship. However, you should know that this 2-piece bonus will only be applied to ships with a normal Quantum Slipstream drive. So if you try putting this on, say, a Miracle Worker ship, which have their own unique form of Quantum Slipstream drive, it won't do anything. So yeah, just be mindful of that when putting this together. Okay, that's it for the gear. Now moving on to your skill tree, there is one thing you want to make sure you have checked off. In the first choice selection for the science skills, you want to make sure you have sector space travel speed selected. That's going to increase your maximum sector space travel speed time by 25%. So that's going to be pretty helpful for Tour of the Galaxy. Sadly, if you did not pick this, then you're going to need to respec your skill tree, which is going to be a huge hassle. And finally, in the traits, there is one personal trait and 2 starship traits that will help you with your sector space speed. The personal trait is called Lead Foot, and it's available from the Infinity Lockboxes. This will give your Quantum Slipstream a 25% buff to turn rate and 10% buff to speed. In the starship traits, the first one is called Synthetic Good Fortune off the Tier 6 Equinox. While in sector space, this gives a passive plus 25 starship sector space speed buff. Not exactly a big speed boost, but it's something. And this last one is probably the one I'm going to be yelled at about, Extensively Modified Warp Core. This trait gives significantly improved flight speed and turn rate during Quantum Slipstream. I really wish this description would tell me just how much of a buff it gave to Quantum Slipstream, but that's all that's written there. And the reason I feel like I'm going to get yelled at about this trait is because it is only available on the Legendary Intrepid class, which is only available in the 10th Anniversary Bundle. Yeah, I know, not exactly a cheap build, but at the same time, I'm not saying you need every single thing on this list in order to complete Tour of the Galaxy. I'm just saying that this is the most optimal build to complete it as quickly as possible. Now, I did say I was going to show you 2 different builds, but before I get to that, there are 3 other things that you can do to increase your sector space speed. The first 2 are Diplomatic Immunity and Raiding Party. Both of these, when applied, will give plus 50 to sector space speed, and they stack, so if you can get both, that's plus 100. The way to get these is to max out the Diplomatic or Marauder Duty Officer tracks, though keep in mind you're only going to get one depending on your faction. Federation players get Diplomatic, and KDF get Marauder. Now, the downside to these buffs is that they can only be applied to other players, and they can only be activated while in sector space. Also, each buff will only last for an hour. So you're not going to be able to apply either of these buffs to yourself, you're going to be reliant on other players for them. The last thing you can do to up your sector space speed is through a duty officer mission. Getting a critical success on the duty officer mission Perform Antimatter Containment Leak drills will grant a plus 25 buff to sector space speed travel. Now, this is a duty officer mission, so not only are you reliant on RNG for it to even show up, but getting the buff requires a critical success, so that's another factor of RNG. So yeah, because of that, I wouldn't try to be too reliant on this, but if you can get it, enjoy it while you have it. Okay, now moving on to that second build I was talking about earlier. Now, the actual build itself really isn't that different from what I just showed you. The primary difference here is what type of slipstream you're going to be relying on, because the previous build was reliant on a Chronoton infused quantum slipstream drive. And while that one is a little faster and has a much better turn rate, it's not your only option. Alternatively, you could rely on a cyclical quantum slipstream drive. That's the variant that's only available on Miracle Worker ships. Now, going this route means you won't have to use those two Vesta consoles, because that 2-piece bonus won't do anything to a cyclical slipstream. Cyclical slipstream. Man, that is hard to say out loud. So while the Chronoton integrated slipstream is a bit faster and much more maneuverable, this one has a much longer duration and better cooldown. The first one has an active time of 60 seconds and a 2-minute recharge, while this one will stay active for 90 seconds, and technically it does still have a 2-minute cooldown, but its cooldown will actually start when the ability is activated. So the cooldown for the cyclical drive could be anywhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on if you shut it down early or not. The big trick with this one is going to be the turn rate, or lack thereof. Alright, that about does it for the builds. Now let's move on to the route. The first thing you're going to want to do is to claim 3 other missions, because we're going to be using those as transwarp shortcuts. The first is Cold Case, which is the second episode in the old Cold War arc, which you can find in the Available tab. This will take us right to the Defera system and be our shortcut into the Alpha Quadrant. The next one is Armistice, the second episode in the Gamma Quadrant arc. This one is going to be our shortcut into the Gamma Quadrant, obviously. And lastly is Revelations, which is the 5th episode in the Delta Quadrant arc. Or technically 3rd if you're only counting the replayable missions. And obviously this is going to be our shortcut into the Delta Quadrant. Once you have those 3 episodes queued up, then you can get into position to start your Tour of the Galaxy run. I like to start Tour of the Galaxy at the Nimbus system, and then kind of work my way down and around the Alpha Quadrant. You'll see the names of each systems I'm going to on the screen, so you can work out the route from that. For each system you visit, you will earn 25,000 energy credits, along with 25 Duty Officer XP for your exploration and trade cracks. All the systems in the Alpha and Beta quadrants are listed in rows. For each row you complete, you'll receive an additional 25,000 energy credits. And the Duty Officer XP, but we all know why we're really here. want to make sure you're paying attention while doing this. Sometimes the auto navigation can bug out and send you into the wrong direction. This can be especially problematic if you're using the Miracle Worker Slipstream drive, because the low turn rate can make correcting your course that much more difficult. Now, I had actually forgotten about the episode Cold Case before filming this, so here you can see me using the normal transwarp system to get to Defira. The problem with the normal transwarp system is that it actually takes you inside the system, so I had to sit through one more loading screen while I warped out of Defira. If you're at a point where there's a really sharp turn in sector space, sometimes it's best to go to a full stop and then initiate the turn. When you're at a full stop and your slipstream isn't on, that's actually when your turn rate will be highest in sector space. It's not super necessary with this Chronoton integrated slipstream drive because the turn rate buff is so high with it, but that could definitely be more useful if you're using a Miracle Worker slipstream. After completing the Alpha Quadrant, I transwarped over to the Gamma Quadrant. It doesn't really matter if you do Gamma or Delta first. Both are small enough that you're only going to get one hit of Slipstream out of them, so it's not going to make much difference time-wise. And finishing up at the Argala system, that is the updated version of Tour of the Galaxy with 4 minutes and 28 seconds left on the clock. So that is a total runtime of 11 minutes and 32 seconds. And that's without using Diplomatic Immunity, Raiding Party, or that one duty officer mission. So yeah, that is the updated version of Tour of the Galaxy and a build to help get you through it. I hope this guide helps you in your EC grind. If you have any questions or comments about the build or the route itself, you can leave those down below in the comment section, and while you're down there, be sure to hit the like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button to become a member, or hit the super thanks button, or find the merch store link in the description below. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.